So welcome everyone. This is episode 18 of Rocket Lab Weekly, and we actually have a very special guest here who is Stock Track Girl, and I probably butchered your name. And funny enough, when I first started researching Rocket Lab, somehow I found your videos first. So you were one of the first Rocket Lab creators that I knew.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're very happy to have you on the show. And we have my co-host, Matt Money here.
What's going down?
Yes. And I think that this is one of the most important Rocket Lab weeklies that we have done and hopefully will do in a long time, because it's crazy what has been going down this week. And I can't wait to hear your guys' thought. The chat is going to be very, very busy. We will try to keep track, and I think that we will have probably more people than usual because of the circumstances. So we can take the order in a very casual manner. I thought that we mentioned that we had a successful launch this week. What did you guys think about the launch?
Ladies first.
Oh, thank you. Such a gentleman,
Yep.
Matt. I'm really excited. I know a lot of people were worried because it kept getting pushed back, and with the weather and everything, I was really rooting for it to go and happen in the month of January. So the fact that they were able to actually pull it off in January, that was exciting, because if it got pushed back to February, that would just not be cool at all. So, and all the satellites were successfully deployed. The splashdown was awesome, which was, amazing. And I'm really hoping, though, that they start reusing things. They start showing that reusability, and that's what I'm kind of waiting on and looking for, because that's definitely a huge component of, what they tout is all about reusability. So that is one thing that I do want to see moving forward. I want to see, more of them reusing the engines and stuff like that. So, but it's good. It's a good start, but there's a long way to go this year as far as launches. They have a big lineup for Electron.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Matt?
So, yeah, I want to echo a lot of that. So the thing that I was most excited about seeing is really their step up in social media presence. It's like they're almost documenting every single step. And that's really cool, because when you kind of look back on some of the previous launches and stuff like that, it might just be the video, but actually having that kind of documentation piece of, hey, Peter Beck showing that it landed, and hey, they're picking it up out of the water, and that cool piece, it just gets me really fired up. And also some of the visualizations that they were able to provide during the actual launch itself, kind of showing the first stage, the second stage, and having that kind of cool graphic showing up and kind of helping some of the folks that might not necessarily be as familiar with the product. And it's kind of like an advertisement on its own, right? Kind of showing people what's possible and what really is going on, because sometimes you don't really get that that sense of scale and what's going on when you're kind of behind a computer screen or behind a screen in general. So it was really cool to be able to see that additional layer added on, and I think it's really going to play dividends in the end.
You have a point there.
Yeah. And we have this standing joke with Matt that, Rocket Lab usually falls after whatever they do, the stock falls. So if the rocket blows up, the stock falls. If they return to launch, the stock falls. If we get a $500 million contract, we get like a 1-day boost, and then the stock falls. And we made this bet with Matt, or I didn't say a number, but you said that we are going to see 435 or something after the rocket launch. And It looked like you were going to lose this bet until they... I mean, yes, but
that's exactly what I said. It's exactly what I said the next day, and then boom, the day after they released all this the news.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I think the order we take it is they released the Q4 numbers, which were preliminary numbers. And I was scratching my head. I didn't understand, because normally you pre-release numbers when the company is doing super good or it's doing super bad, and it was none of those. And I was scratching my head of why did they do this? And soon after we found out why, it was a very painful, for me at least, stock reaction to that. But let's cover the numbers first. So I have the list pulled up here. I don't know if you guys can see it. Maybe the best is, is it too small, or are you guys able to?
I think I can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Might be tough for the people on their phones, but if they're on
Yeah.
a computer, they should be fine.
Yeah. So what did you guys think about the Q4 numbers? We can take ladies first, and then we go to Matt.
Naturally, I'm always drawn to the space systems. So of course I knew that that was going to be a good strength there. And as expected, the launch revenue dropped because, you know, we know what happened during that quarter. So again, it wasn't too much of a shock for me to see growth in space systems decreasing in the launch area. I do know that the cash burn, I believe, did widen, but again, to be expected. They have a lot going on in development right now, Neutron and all that other stuff. So it just, I mean, positives and negatives, but to me, it was kind of what I was expecting to see.
No, well said. I'm curious though, before I go down my rabbit hole, what draws you so much to the space systems as opposed to the launch, or is it you love both equally? Just,
you know, I mean, visually, of course, I love the launch. I mean, you know, that's what initially drew me to Rocket Lab, was just the launches in general as a space company. But you know, as I've been following Rocket Lab for so long, and as I've gotten to know just all of their product offerings, I really think that the space systems side is going to be extremely lucrative and a lot more exponential growth than what the launches are going to bring. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, Neutron and all that's coming, it's going to do a lot. But still, I don't know, I'm just really eyeing that space system side. I want to see what they're going to do. They've done a lot of acquisitions. We're going to be talking about a possible acquisition, you know, later on. And I just think it's a really important side that people shouldn't forget about.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to be the differentiator between SpaceX or ULA or any of these other sort of just launch companies?
Yeah, it's, you know, they're diversifying themselves.
All right.
You know, and I like, you know, when a company is diversifying. I mean, you know, if Apple just had Apple computers and they didn't have, you know, like, you know, the AirPods and all the other cool stuff to get all that revenue in. I mean, it's good to have all these products and diversity, and the fact that it makes them vertically integrated, it just makes them even more of, you know, a reputable launch company. It's all in-house. So I think that makes it really important.
Yeah, very good. So like you, I was excited to see the space systems kind of come in as expected. The thing obviously showed up is I was kind of fingers crossed hoping for that second launch in December, but we just never got around to it. So we'll hopefully see it here in the February, March timeframe as it's been kind of rescheduled. The thing that excited me most is about the non-GAAP gross margins still being over 30%, even without that second launch, helping offset some of the costs there. I am kind of curious, and I want to hear some more color. Exactly what you said. The cash burn continuing to widen. I've been thinking over the past several quarters that it was going to continue to shrink, and yet here we are continuing to see it grow over the past 3 quarters. So I'm kind of sitting here wondering if that's attributed to Neutron and getting that up to speed, or what exactly that additional growing costs are. I'm also trying to consider the fact that we've taken on additional warehouses in different states, and I'm curious if that has something to do with it. So I'm kind of just wanting to hear some more color. But going back to what Vince is kind of talking about earlier about how they're kind of pre-releasing earnings, the reason why I think it is obviously we'll get into I'm sure the bond offering here in just a moment. But I think with that, it gives and opens up the opportunity to have more of a conversation and focus on Q&A in late February rather than focusing on the earnings. And I anticipate that what we'll talk about with the bond offering, there's going to be more to talk about, whether it is sort of an acquisition or whether it is additional sort of systems that they plan on adding to the revenue streams of already great products that they have at Rocket Lab. I'm not sure, but I just knowing this company and knowing the management and how strong it has been, I've always kind of scratched my head and said, I don't know if I would do that. It's one of those times again where I'd say, I don't know if I would do that, but they always end up surprising me, right? Like I never really thought very early on when I invested in the SPAC, the Vector Acquisition Group, I was buying just for the launch, right? I didn't really care about satellites and X and Y and Z, but Peter and Spice have really brought me along to understand the vision that they have and where they are and educated me in the process. And I anticipate we're going to do more of that in this fourth quarter earnings call in late February as well. So I'm excited to see what they have in store. And I think that is probably why they released the earnings slightly early.
Don't you think that the earnings was needed for the negotiations of because it sounded like when they came out with the convertible offering that it was ongoing negotiations because they didn't have terms. And normally when my company takes on loans, like I have a real estate company, like the bank always wants to see your latest numbers, right? And then I think if they have to disclose their latest numbers to one set of investors, then per the laws, like it needs to be to all investors.
That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Cool. I did hear a little bit of, what was expected and what we got. And you can see that this is the rocket launch. We were expecting 16.5 million or this is what they were guiding for. And we got 8.5 million. The space systems actually did 1.5 million better. So overall, we came in like 10% under guidance. And I'm also like, if you look at their gross, this is the non-GAAP adjusted gross margin. What a complicated name for this number, but you can see it's on the way up and we are at 32, 30, 31, 32. So that was very nice to see. And then here I added what was then the estimate for the year and what did we come in at. And we were basically thinking that it would be a 251 million a year and instead we got 244. It's like a slight miss. We all understand why it is. It's a 15.9% growth as opposed to 19%. But next year, I don't think anything has changed. Maybe even space systems is going to grow better. So I feel like this 43% is kind of in the bag. And I don't think that these Q4 numbers, this is my opinion, I don't think they mattered so much. Like at least as an investor, I was always wanting to see like, okay, Q1, are they making the 100 million quarter? Is space systems doing good? And is Neutron on target? Like this quarter was never really that important. So, and then after these numbers were released, they put a cold shower on us, shareholders, with this announcement that they are doing a convertible private offering for $275 million. They can extend it at will to $41.25 million. And this is subject to market and other conditions, and there can be no assurance as to whether or when the offering may be completed or as to the actual size of the offering. I'm soon going to ask your opinions. I think that this line was the one that sent the markets tumbling, in my opinion, because they didn't say that what conversion price the loan offering will be. They didn't say what terms there will be, and then somehow the market assumed the worst case scenario and then added a couple of percentages to it. So the point of a convertible offering is that you can, so if the company would take a loan, that hurts the balance sheet, but it's the best for us as shareholders because we don't get diluted, and as long as the company will create cash flows in the future, they can pay it back. So it's the riskiest for us shareholders, and the best if the outcome is good. Offering the equity is the safest because it's not a loan. You don't have to pay it back, but the stock price was crap. And so that means that we get a lot of dilution if they would offer straight equity. So instead, you can find an in-between where you take a loan, but you tell to the other party that instead of paying a market rate, we want to pay a reduced rate. But if the company is doing really well, we can pay you back in stock. And let's say that the strike price that they agree on is $5 and the stock goes up to $6, then the guy who gave the loan, they win their interest, and plus they win the difference between the $5 and $6. So it's a very good in between. And so my point is, if they had done the direct equity offering, it would have been a 13% dilution, and therefore it would have made sense if the stock falls 13%. The stock fell 20%. I have no clue who thought it was logical or what the logic was behind it. But this wasn't a direct equity offering. This was a convertible offering, meaning the dilution will be less. And even they talk about in this press release that they are doing additional steps to lessen the dilution. So for me, maybe a 6 to 7% drop would have been reasonable. And on top of it, Rocket Lab is still the same company that we know, and them having more cash means that they have way more runway. There is less bankruptcy risk, and it's overall a better company. So I could have even understood if the stock only falls 2-3%. So that was my big rant. Ladies first, what did you think about this announcement, and what's your take on it?
I think that a lot of the general public, when they see something like, a convertible note offering, automatically they think it's going to affect them in a major way, in a negative way. And people overreact a lot in the market. Some people aren't as well versed in the company as others. So they might have let go because of those reasons. I don't know. For me, it didn't really affect me, but that's because I'm well invested. I know about the company, but like I said, maybe there's just people out there. They're just holding it. Maybe they don't know much about it. They dropped it. I don't know. I think it was just a major overreaction. And as soon as the news came out, it just plummeted. It just plummeted big time. But I see it, with my knowledge, as a buying opportunity. Like you said, you think it should only drop by a couple percentage points, if that. But I mean, if you look at most of the announcements that Rocket Lab has made, whether it is, an acquisition or whether it's a launch, for some reason the stock drops. It's like that's the market's reaction. Even to good news, it's dropped before, So I don't know. I just think it's the way the market is right now. A lot of people are edgy, and when it comes to debt, a lot of people are even more edgier about that with the way things are right now in the economy and whatnot. So I just think, again, major overreaction, which it's a shame, but it's an opportunity for people like us. So I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all.
Awesome. Matt, what's your take?
Well, I would like to take the opportunity to admit that I was wrong. I think a lot of people were hesitant to enter part of the stock due to something like this, some sort of dilution impact. And me looking at how they ended the third quarter, and I guess we'll find out how they ended the fourth quarter. They ended with $285 million in cash. So to me, I was kind of scratching my head, knowing that the cash burn was anywhere between 20 to 40 million a quarter, and it's been kind of averaging around 30 in the hope that it would shrink. I anticipated that meant that they had about 8 to 10 quarters really before they had to do anything drastic. But at the same time, now that they're starting to get some of these larger deals and their space system is growing, they're going to have hopefully close to $400 million in revenue this year. That means that they need working capital, and 285 million might just not be enough, especially if you're trying to bring on a large new medium launch vehicle. I get large, I meant medium launch vehicle, and need one or two backups in case the first one unfortunately doesn't do well. Or if you think about it, if they try to land it the first time and it doesn't work, then you need to create another one, right? So, that I'm sure will start off at a cost of about 30 million a piece, and eventually once you get it up and running, it'll probably lower itself down to 20 to 25 million a piece to just build that rocket on its own. So you need a little bit of extra room. And so I guess maybe it was the naivety of me. So I want to take that opportunity to admit that I was wrong with that. Second, the offering, I think initially was a head scratcher for me. The fact that they just blanketly stated, yes, we're going to have convertible debt, $275 million worth. Not having the terms really flustered me a little bit. And initially I was thinking, maybe it'll only be 50 cents on the dollar that they actually give out in actual equity. And I'm sure you'll note that they've now kind of come out with the terms a day or two ago. Maybe it was yesterday, 2 days ago. And it actually ended up being pretty favorable. The thing that I'm still needing to research a little bit more about is taking a part of the capital that they are getting to purchase these capped calls that help with the share dilution in the future. And so
are they freaking buying Rocket Lab call options? Like, this is what I was thinking. Like, is Rocket Lab like raising capital to buy Rocket Lab leaps on themselves, so to lessen the?
No, it's some sort of derivative. I'm not 100% sure, but it's not like something that you would just buy on the open market that's like available to us, right? I think it's part of the contract of, I don't know if it's with some sort of, I'm going to get it wrong because I'm not familiar with it, but it's pretty much like an insurance policy. So that way people aren't being able to get, let's just say, however many millions of dollars worth of shares at $4. It's like, well, no, the price has increased to $12, so you don't get as many shares as you originally anticipated. You're kind of capped at some point of being able to make a gain on that, right? Because if you think about it, they were able to get a 4.25% interest rate, which in this environment is very favorable.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So but anyway, I'll hand it back to you. Maybe both of you guys know a little bit more about these cap call opportunities than I do. I'm not really familiar with them other than initial research. So
yeah.
Do you know?
Go ahead, Vince.
No. Do you know about them?
I know a little bit about them. I just think what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a hedge against dilution more so. It's going to be more beneficial for the stockholders like me and you and everyone else out there. So just like what Matt was saying, it is more kind of like an insurance in a way. And it's going to just prevent them from, taking advantage of the situation, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, interesting enough on this, it's so technical. So if we have a viewer who's an expert on these convertible loans, I would love to have you on the channel to explain what all this stuff means. But it seems like that they have a strike price. I'm going to try to find like here. And it's saying that if the stock price exceeds 130% of the conversion price, then Rocket Lab is allowed to like buy back the loan at the strike price or at this 130% price. So meaning that they cap the dilution. What happened? Because it sounds like the whole loan is convertible, but Rocket Lab can pay back parts of the loan in cash, which would also lessen the dilution. So that there's really a lot to take in on this. And if we have an expert here, I would love to have you on the channel. But I think this is as far as we go on these terms. I don't know. Do you guys, is there something we didn't say about it that we know?
You're much smarter than I am, Vince. So I was really hoping you'd be able to help us through it.
Well, I believe they did raise it though, because you have it on there that it's 275, and they went ahead and they raised it to 300.
Yeah, it was oversubscribed, I anticipate, so they raised it, which means good thing, right? I mean, it'd be a different thing if they're like, well, we had to lower it to 200. It's like, no, within a day or two, they got it up to 300.
And I don't know where I found this nugget of information. I've been trying to keep searching for it because I wanted to pull it up for you guys, but I found somewhere something about BlackRock being interested in these convertible notes. And if that is true, I haven't quite verified it, but if it is true, I mean that shows a high sense of confidence that BlackRock is wanting in on this deal. So I mean that's a positive, nugget in the midst of this negativity.
Yeah, and then and building on top of that, there was somebody, Johnny Mack, reached out to me and asked specifically, like, in terms of institutional ownership. I think I don't know if he was asking about BlackRock or Vanguard specifically, but if you actually go into like Fidelity or anybody like that, there's a large list of institutional holders in this stock already. It's actually has like a 35 or 40% institutional ownership. So these companies are already invested, and so it wouldn't be surprising to me if those guys are coming to the table to say, hey, yeah, like we feel confident in your guys' ability to deliver. We've been invested since you guys have SPAC'd in 2021. Like we'd be more than happy to subscribe, knowing that they'd be able to get 4.25 and then potential ownership in the company itself. It's interesting to see. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people recognize, like, these guys own part of everything, especially if they have an ETF on space, then they own part of it.
Yeah. I want to show you guys something very, very crazy. So I know a lot of people get scared when the stock price drops, and I had a very emotional day. It's not the reason why I shaved my head, contrary to what's in the comments. I sold puts because I was testing a new strategy, and it was just the worst time to sell my puts, and it really moved against me. But whatever, I will, everyone has losing trades. So on that day, I was a little bit not happy, and then I was looking at the company, and it's so crazy. This is the balance sheet of Rocket Lab as of September 30th, and you can see that they have 287 million of cash, and the debt of the company is this 133 million Hercules loan and a 105 million Hercules loan and a 41 million. So let's say 150 million, let's say it is their debt. So with this capital raise, they're going to have 400 million of cash. How was I calculating? So do you guys remember what is the net cash that is going to increase their balance sheet with? It's 300.
I don't know. It's hard to say because they came out with something in December too, right? Where they had like $140 million loan that replaced the Hercules. So I'd have to do some math.
Yeah. So, let's agree that it's without the Q4 report, it's kind of impossible to do this correctly. But I was thinking that rough numbers. So if they have 300 million in cash, the new loan that they got, it was basically used to pay off the other loans. So let's say that that's neutral. And then let's say that the shares convert. So meaning that this loan will end up being an equity. Then we have a company with a market cap of 1.9 billion, where there is, as of today, or as of this offering, there will be 280 million plus, let's say 300 million, so almost 600 million on account, with 150 million in debt, so 450 million. So that would put the enterprise value of almost at 1.5 billion for this company, which is utterly insane to me as for pricing.
Yeah, it's definitely cheap. It always makes me scratch my head because, like, I generally speaking, am pretty good about reading these things now. I've been investing close to 10 years, not specifically in Rocket Lab, but just in companies in general. And I've been burned enough where I've started to be able to find little nuggets and try to find where the poop is buried sometimes in some of these books. and I'm just like, I'm either missing something, or this thing is just massively undervalued comparatively to the potential. And my hope is that it's the latter. But you know, you never really know with these sorts of things. I think it really is just a piece of it. It's just in bad company with all the other stocks that unfortunately are historically unprofitable and most of the time go belly up. And my hope is that Rocket Lab being a number, or the Electron being the number 2 launch vehicle in the US over the past several years, and continuing to demonstrate its dominance and having a great manifest this year, will show that, hey, this thing's here to stay, and the opportunity are really plentiful to be able to operate and be a part of something like Rocket Lab, comparatively to some of the other competitors out there, which are not favoring too well right now. And also building on top of what you said, Vince, has a great financial backing. Yes, it's debt, but that comes with a lot of cash to be able to add bolt-on acquisitions, to which there are several good companies out there that are still extremely cheap, under $100 million or so, and are actually EBITDA positive. So you could have some of these bolt-on acquisitions, of which I'm sure we'll talk about one. I know Stock Direct probably has one that she wants to talk about, but Redwire is an example of a company that's now EBITDA positive, and there's several others. Black Sky will be EBITDA positive here pretty soon. So at what point do you find, oh, this is a really good bolt-on acquisition for us, or and I don't have that answer. That's a Peter and Spice question, but I'm sure there's an opportunity out there, and it wasn't ruled out. If you look in the actual release, it says it does not rule out strategic acquisitions in the report as well. So that was the thing that I noticed looking through and reading line by line. So I'm very curious to see what the fourth quarter earnings report has in store for us later this month.
Did you guys hear the rumor? There is a rumor that they are planning an acquisition.
Yes.
And
yeah.
No, I know that the chat really wants us to talk about it, so I think this is the time. So you go ahead.
Well, I do think there's definitely insider talk amongst the Rocket Lab about it, because when they were going over their SD Beta award, they specifically said that they were thinking about doing an acquisition, and they specifically said that they're not going to say, I believe it was going to be like a space systems acquisition, to expound on that. But they said they didn't want to talk about exactly what components in particular, because maybe they were in the middle of working stuff out. I don't know, but I do think they've had their eyes on it, for a little while. And what's interesting is, with this whole convertible note debt offering that just happened, I don't think, if they were really doing so horrible that they needed to raise cash, they wouldn't really even be talking about an acquisition or taking on even more. If they were running into trouble with the cash burn so bad, I just think that the fact that they were mentioning acquisition, and then doing the convertible note, I think it could be indicative that they're going to use the money in a way that's going to benefit the company long term. It might take a hit short term, but if they do an acquisition, I think they've done enough research. Spice is very good at that, and I think it's going to turn out quite well. As far as which acquisition, there's a lot of people floating rumors out there with some names.
Do you want to float names?
I believe there's one based out of New Zealand called Rayon, which is quite interesting because it is New Zealand based, and they do actually have space system components, in a sense that they have these like these crystal transmitters and frequencies that can be implemented, and not just space systems, but also autonomous vehicles and other areas, 5G, and they were working on AI. And as you know, AI and autonomy is very big. And to expound on that, ARK Invest, Kathy Woods, she's really big on investing in AI autonomy. She has her space index, and then she has her autonomy index. And it's interesting because I think she has Rocket Lab in both of those. So she does see Rocket Lab kind of going into this AI autonomy type of a thing. And I think when Rocket Lab does get their satellites and stuff going, possibly their own constellation that they've talked about before, it's probably going to involve, data, AI, and all of that stuff. So Raycon would be, it would be something that they could utilize to accomplish those things.
Yeah, and for the viewers, I just want to show a video about Raycon, and then I actually managed to track down through the really nice work of Francisco Ramirez and Christopher Bell and some others on Twitter where this rumor about Raycon comes from, and I want to show you guys. It's pretty interesting. So this is the company Raycon. It's like a 2-minute video we can play that explains what the company does.
It feels amazing to be at the cutting edge of global innovation. Connectivity is the nervous system of technology. Without good connectivity, you cannot do much. As technology gets smarter, we need to support it with connectivity that is faster, more precise, more stable, and more reliable. And that's where Raycon comes in. We are a world leader in precision timing and frequency control products. You may not know what these are, but our products are critical for enabling connectivity between people, networks, and machines. They're at the heart of hundreds of applications around the world. We are a truly global organization with over 1,000 employees. We have significant operations in UK, France, and India, but our headquarters are right here in New Zealand.
We've always been solving the industry's most difficult and challenging problems. By doing this, we formed enduring partnerships with the world-leading manufacturers of satellites, space, and also defense systems.
We are acutely aware of our responsibility to operate sustainably. We strive to contribute to a safer, cleaner, and more productive world. We have been doing so for years.
We have delivered some incredible achievements, and now we see these products lead the way, years ahead of our competitors. Seeing NASA's rover land on Mars with 2 of Raycon products on board was very exciting, demonstrating our products in the most extreme environments.
Being listed on the NZX helps us develop the disciplines and governance which gives our stakeholders confidence in how we run the business. Being listed also means that we can see the effect of more people understanding what our business does, how we create value, our recent results, and the opportunities in front of us.
In the next 5 to 10 years, we will continue to take bold steps forward and grow further. Advances in applications like cloud computing, metaverse, and 6G will exponentially increase the demand for improved connectivity and therefore the demand for Raycon's products. A good example is the hyperscale data centers planned right here in New Zealand. We've also been embedding ourselves deeply into the ecosystem that is forming around private enterprises entering space, which is bound to be a fascinating emerging market. We are excited about the future.
Okay, so this was Raycon, and I want to show you guys, this is what started off the rumor, is a Reddit post. And this guy is saying, for a bit of fun, a totally pure speculation, my bet is on Rocket Lab being the company looking to purchase Raycon, hence the new cash they now have available to spend acquisitions. Here is an announcement to stockholders that Raycon made on December 2023. And if you open that link, I'm so curious what you guys think about this. So it says, on December 7th, 2023, the board of Raycon Limited received an unsolicited, non-binding indicative proposal from a credible industry player with a view to entering discussions about a potential acquisition of all Raycon shares at a proposed price of New Zealand $1.7 a share. in cash via a scheme of arrangement or takeover offer the proposal. The proposal is incomplete and highly conditional, and as a result, there can be no certainty that any transaction will eventuate. The proposal was confidential when received, and ordinarily the receipt of a proposal at such an early stage would not require disclosure. However, Rayon has become aware that the existence of the proposal may be known by some shareholders, so it's releasing the details to ensure that all shareholders are aware of them. So this, I'm not gonna lie, it does coincide very, very interestingly. A New Zealand company interested in space, they got an unsolicited offer, very conditional, really not sure that it's going to happen. And what do you guys think about this? Ladies first.
I believe the offer that was approached was around the sum of, I think, like $390 million is what they approached them with. It might be exactly 391 million. But I mean, and then
I'm very impressed that you knew that. I had to calculate the New Zealand dollars into US dollars and the amount of shares that they have, and I came to a similar number. So I'm very impressed.
Thank you. So I just think that, you know, it could be speculative, but this is something that would be good for Rocket Lab. It could benefit the space systems, but there are, as Matt said, there are a lot of other companies out there that, you know, they can acquire at about the same or cheaper. So it all depends. I mean, it is a New Zealand company, and Rocket Lab is based out of New Zealand, technically USA. But I mean, I don't know. I think it's a possibility, but at the same time, I don't want to discredit other things that are out there, because Rocket Lab tends to be full of surprises, and right when we think we know something, something else gets announced. So I don't want to 100% say for sure this is the one, but they do have components that are very interesting that Rocket Lab could utilize moving forward. So if they were to acquire it, you know, I wouldn't be against it.
All right, Matt.
So I think, I don't remember if it was in the 2Q or 3Q earnings call, they teased a kind of like a Starlink-esque sort of satellite constellation that might be the equivalent of like Rocket Lab Starlink. And so if that was the case, Rayon and what they kind of provide, which is kind of internet connectivity, could be their kind of equivalent. And I think that would be useful, knowing how rural parts of Australia are and New Zealand, etc. That could be a direct piece where they could, let's just say, get a few satellites up there and really help the Australian government to kind of provide internet connectivity across kind of that area. And just knowing how they have already kind of established that connection with the Australian government. So that's kind of my initial thoughts. And that's all speculation, right? And I don't necessarily have that kind of in my back pocket, but I'm always kind of looking for acquisitions on the market that are plausible to meet that criteria, right? Could it fit and provide some sort of service or constellation service that is going to be Rocket Lab sort of SpaceX, right? Because I think at this point, they're able to provide kind of an ability to create satellites and put them into space for people, but they don't really have something of their own kind of reoccurring revenue stream as of yet. And they have that operating control center in Denver that they can really monitor some of these things, you know, worldwide, which they are going to be helping monitor for the SDA and things like that. But they don't really have something that they're monitoring on their own that could provide revenue consistently to the company, kind of like what Starlink does for SpaceX. So I'm always kind of on the lookout of, you know, they hint at something. Is this going to be what they attempt to do? And so I'm kind of just sitting here wondering, you know, looking through that video, watching that video, it kind of was like, okay, that's where my head goes, is kind of some sort of Australian kind of SpaceX sort of company. But, you know, $390 million for Rocket Lab is a lot is a lot of money.
I was just going to ask, when I looked at the company and looked at the price, I just also want to show you guys, it's not a bad company. Oh wait, this is Rocket Lab, this is Rayon, but 391 million, it's more cash than what they're raising. And I think if they would be buying this company, it's also not a pure space play. Like they are, yes, like part of the company is in defense and satellite communication, but it's not a pure space play. And I mean, that would kind of worry me as a shareholder, that they like blow all their cash and, you know, Neutron is not done. And so just to show the company, on the balance sheet, they have 21 million cash. It's not a lot. They have very little debt. I had it somewhere. The total debt $9 million. On the income statement, it's a profitable company. 31 million, 43 million per quarter. And if you look on the summary numbers, and you look at this chart, so you can see that in December, before they made this announcement, sorry, it's just my computer is very slow, the stock was at 60 cents New Zealand dollars, and it almost doubled from this announcement. And with this double price, they are at a 13 PE ratio. So that means that when they made the offer, they were at 6 PE ratio for a profitable company. So it is a bar. Like if they end up buying this company, it does look like it's a good deal. But 390 million is a lot of cash, even for Rocket Lab. And that makes me really worried. Like if this was announced, I feel that we would get like another 30% drop or something.
Right. I do know with this company, Rayon in particular, their last few quarters, I think, they were kind of not as great as before, but I think that was all due to COVID, and then of course the chip shortages going on, and just all that. So I do know their company was impacted with the economic changes that have been going on. Probably why they were approached by somebody. Maybe they saw it as a good time to kind of go in and make that offering. But you know, they do have a lot going on as a company. But yeah, 391 million, that's a lot. And plus they're developing Neutron right now. My wondering is this cash raise, is it not just an acquisition right now? I know they've been talking about acquisitions, but I mean, maybe they're wanting to speed up Neutron. Maybe they're wanting to get stuff out quicker. I don't know. You know, is some of this going to Neutron? Is Neutron costing more than what they anticipated? Did they run into some things? But at the same token, I think an acquisition is still possible, but 391 million, that's a lot.
Yeah, I hope it's not this company. I can totally see what started the rumor and why people are speculating, but I think it would be a bad decision to go in with that much money into this company.
I think we'll know more during earnings. see if they throw any bones our way on what, you know, they're planning on using this for.
And by the way, you made a very good comment on that. Yes, like it does say that it's for potential acquisitions, but like what other things can have happened in the company? And I think that they talked about on the conference call that you need to raise, like they want to, like you need to raise money from a position of strength. And then if you look at, like, they just went back to launch, they just got a $500 million contract. Right. It looks like Neutron is on track. They started doing the concrete in Virginia. I don't know if they started doing that for the cash raise. They're like, guys, we need to raise cash. You know, get those concrete machines going. Let's take photos for the. I don't know if that's what was going on, but I think that this was a perfect time to raise money, because maybe they would have had enough money to develop Neutron, But what if they come to that point and have like 30 million left in the bank, you know? Then they really don't have much options to do anything. And I think that would be very fiscally irresponsible from them to do that. So it kind of sucks that the share price was this low when they announced this. Like, of course, I wish the stock price would have been 10 or 15, then it would be way easier and a lot less dilution. But from the long term of the company, I think this was the perfect time to do what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
No, I think you guys hit it. I think it's tough to thread that needle, and I think that 390 odd million is just too much. And while it might fit as a bolt-on acquisition kind of perfectly, I think it would be too much with juggling getting Neutron, which I think is the first order of operations in terms of priority, to get that up and running, and making sure that those contracts start to come in the 2025 time period for NASA and many others that I'm sure will eventually sign up for launch on Neutron. So to me, then when I was looking at acquisitions, I was looking at smaller things, something that's like 100 million, that's very bolt-on, cash flow break even, if not EBITDA positive, and that's where I'm kind of headed. I don't think that they've raised enough to be able to acquire Raycon, even though it sounds like a perfect marriage to be able to provide, I guess, a Rocket Lab sort of Starlink equivalent, right? Maybe they aren't thinking that far out yet, right? Or maybe they haven't gotten to that place yet where they feel comfortable enough to do something like that. And maybe in time, you know, that could be a better opportunity, but it might be too late, because it sounds like somebody else might be beating us to it with Raycon. But I also think it would be kind of ballsy for Rocket Lab to approach them in early December, late November of last year, and not have any of the cash at hand at the moment. So that would be kind of ballsy, unless they did some sort of further dilutive event, which is, you know, a 50-50 cash and stock, which I don't necessarily know how people would feel about that. Probably not very good, but
it does say in this investor release that it was an all cash offer. Like, it was a cash offer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I agree with you. If it was a 50-50 split, that would royally suck for Rocket Lab, I think. Did you guys see this comment that 391 million New Zealand dollars is only 237 million US dollars?
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we were all wrong on how I can't remember if it was US or New Zealand, but
I'm thinking the 391. Oh gosh, I think it was in US dollar.
that's also what I remember.
Yeah, I think it was. I think I converted it to US. I don't think it was New Zealand, but
you can always look at the Raycon shares outstanding really quick, and then multiply that by 170.
There was a comment here by Johnny Mac that we are all wrong. They are acquiring the concrete company for another pad.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's some vertical integration there. They need those concreting machines.
They sure do.
So yeah, it looks like the shares outstanding for Raycon are about 230 million. Multiply that by the 1.7, that's the 390 New Zealand dollars. And then I guess if you take the discount of what a New Zealand dollar is comparatively to.
So is it New Zealand then?
Yeah, it is. It looks like it's New Zealand.
Okay, well then, we need to.
But I'm not good at math, so please, everyone in the chat, double check me.
But okay, it's still a lot of money. It's still a lot of money for Rocket Lab. It's like that would be basically that this whole new equity offering, like all of it is going for this acquisition.
Yeah, that's basically what it would be.
Yeah, and you know, like for example, buying the solar cells, I think that's Sinclair, was
Yeah.
it? Or
No,
what is the
Solero. I think it was
Solero, exactly.
Solero was the
And the reaction wheels, they are Sinclair,
Mhm.
I think.
planetary.
And you know, like those are like for me so obvious that like you obviously need this for manufacturing you know, satellites.
Definitely.
But this Raycon, I'm not sure that it's such a needed acquisition that they need to. Yeah, I guess we just have to go and see.
I can't help but when I hear Raycon, I keep thinking about Akon. And it makes me want to Akon and Young Jeezy trying to take it easy. Anyway, that's what keeps popping in my head when everybody says Raycon.
All right. I think we can end with, what do you guys think is going to happen with the stock from this point, if we try to predict the future, which is impossible, and this is not financial advice, but we're just playing with the thought.
Well, I seem to be the oracle for Rocket Lab. I've said it many times that whenever I leave the YouTube, all of a sudden the stock just tanks, and well, I'm back. So I'm looking for the stock to, you know, go up. But in all seriousness, I do think that drop was overrated. I want to take advantage of it. I do need to add more to my shares. So I will be buying more. Personally, I know family members of mine that are buying more. As far as the share price goes, I think it's going to be choppy until we see this next earnings. People are waiting. They know it's going to be coming up. There's going to be more news that's going to be released. So the share price can definitely make a turnaround. I mean, it's the lowest it's been in a long time, right? So it's an opportunity. That's the way I see it. I'm a long-term investor, you know, so I'm not sure how everybody else does their plays, but for me, this is an opportunity. I plan on getting some more shares, and as far as the stock price, I'm not too worried because I'm holding it for a long time. I have a wider outlook than most people do. But I'm back, so share price, it should be going up soon. That's the way I see it.
But by the way, all your data is in the description box below. Your Twitter, your YouTube channel.
Oh,
so the
okay.
people who are watching, please go and check her channel out. It's
Thank
really
you.
good.
So I can add my thoughts. While I was wrong, I would say on the equity raise piece. Well, not equity raise, sorry, the debt issuance piece, which I guess is kind of like an equity dilution. I was wrong on that, but I still have been a firm believer that there's a lot of capital exposure risk until you kind of get more solidification of Neutron will be launched by X date, right? And knowing that you don't have cost overruns, like we were kind of starting down that path, probably just like 10, 15 minutes ago. It's like, until you get to that place where Neutron's going to be on the pad and everything's been tested and they've tested Archimedes and the tanks and that you're not going to have any further delays, I feel like this is going to be very volatile. And until you get to that point, I feel like you don't really have a lot of certainty on how much cash burn is going to be happening. And because I think at this point, what I've recognized is I think Electron and the space systems business is getting very close to break even. And a lot of the costs that we're enduring right now are very much aligned with getting Neutron on the pad. And so my thought and hope is once we get that Neutron on the pad, we have a little bit more clarity as, okay, now we're actually going to start getting some income instead of some cash burn. We could start getting some contracts out there. We could start to predict a little bit more about the profitability going forward. My hope was that would start to be, I think, break even in the second half. One of the quarters in the second half of this year that looks more and more head scratchingly maybe optimistic. And I appreciate Vince's pushback when I stated that last year, and I think it probably would be more something like a 2025 feat. But to me, it doesn't make sense why this company is worth now less than $2 billion. And it didn't make sense when it was $2.5 billion. I think in very quick succession, once we start to deliver and execute on some of these goals that are in front of us and milestones that are in front of us, it doesn't make sense to me why this isn't a $10 billion company, right? I think it's way too early to value it like a SpaceX. I mean, SpaceX has $4 billion of revenue coming in. They've had, successful launches now in the order of close to 100 a year. So I get why they're worth over $150 billion. And if you think about it on a price to sales basis, that's about a 30x. And we're sitting here now at less than a 10x price to sales, just based off of fiscal year 2023 preliminary earnings that they just released the last week. So we're trading at like closer to a 9 or maybe even a 8.5. So when you think about it, this is the number 2 launch vehicle behind SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, and is a not a close second, but if you were to ask who is number 2, it would be a competition between ULA and Rocket Lab. And I think the fact that this is only a $2 billion venture is kind of a head scratcher to me. And I think it'll be very evident in hindsight within 5 years' time, when this company executes on what it's put out for the next 5 years, that everyone's just like, well, that was a no-brainer. And that's my hope. I would love to be validated on that in 5 years' time. And I hope I am not sitting here under a bridge. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have enough invested to be under a bridge. But I am very optimistic, and this is, I have very few picks, and this is one that I have a lot of confidence in, and I don't think that there's a lot of hair on it. I think that it is very clear, and these guys have done a phenomenal job since 2006. Well, at least Peter's done a phenomenal job since 2006, really bootstrapping the company to where it is today, and they continue to surprise me, as they surprised me earlier this week with their convertible debt offering. So very curious to see what ends up coming through. And I think, as always, I'll be pleasantly surprised. And even if I kind of scratch my head, eventually I'll come around and say, nope, they know what they're doing. And I'm just some idiot in Houston in an office that should be a bedroom. And just hoping for the best for the stock. And that's really all I can say.
Yeah, very well said. And the only thing I want to add to what you said is the community around Rocket Lab is amazing. And when this 20% minus day came, there was maybe one guy that I saw who was semi-negative. You can't even say that he was maybe upset that his stock was down, and everybody else was buying, telling their parents to buy, telling their brothers and sisters to buy. And that is such a nice feeling, because when you're in a stock where you're doing a quick trade, that means that the minute the stock is going to go up, people are going to sell off because, we made our 20%, But when Rocket Lab actually starts rallying, we have a really, really big group of very high conviction people that are holding it for the long, long term. And I believe that that's when you can get this, like once the stock starts rallying, like you can get this like 5 to 10x easy up, because people are just not selling the stocks. They're like not tourists, and they're there for the long term. So the community is amazing. We actually hit a record with this live stream. I've never had over 100 people on a live stream, never been even close. Like, I think the highest we have had is like around 60, and we have had almost 110. So congratulations to you guys.
It's because we got Boss Lady. That's what it is.
Exactly. You see, we were joking about going this DEI, this diversity and equity, and the investors are all males usually, and we were like, we need to get a woman here, and we are being rewarded for it.
Yeah, we need to get educated rightly.
Exactly. So you're always welcome back if you want to join whenever you want to join. And everyone have a very nice weekend, and hopefully we have a nice week next week with Rocket Lab, and see you next Saturday.
Rocket Lab to the moon, Mars, and Venus.
All right.